Tonight, we're diving into a story that will shake you to your core, a tale of brutal rejection, impossible survival, and a transformation so powerful it rewrote the laws of an entire world. This is the story of Elara Quinn, the Omega who was cast out like garbage, only to return as something no alpha could ever control. If you love stories of underdogs rising to unimaginable power, stay until the very end. You won't believe how this ends. And hey, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. Let's build a community right here. Now, let's begin. The bonfire crackled in the center of the clearing, sending sparks into the night sky like dying stars. Around it, the Ironclaw pack had gathered, over 200 wolves, their eyes gleaming in the firelight, their voices a low rumble of anticipation. This was the night of the pairing ceremony, the night when Alpha Ronin Vex would choose his mate and solidify his rule. Elara Quinn stood at the edge of the circle, her hands clasped in front of her, trying to make herself invisible. She'd known this moment was coming for weeks. Everyone had. The whispers had followed her like shadows through the pack grounds. You think he'll actually pick her? An Omega? As Luna? He'd be insane. She can barely shift without shaking. She'd told herself it didn't matter, that Ronin saw something in her the others didn't, that the quiet moments they'd shared, walking through the woods, talking about the future of the pack, meant something real. But standing here now, watching him pace in front of the fire like a wolf circling prey, doubt coiled tight in her chest. Ronin Vex was everything an alpha should be, at least on the surface. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell just past his collar and eyes like cold steel. When he walked, people moved. When he spoke, they listened. He commanded respect the way other men commanded dogs, through presence, through force, through the unspoken threat of what he could do if you refused. Elara had loved him once, or thought she had. It was hard to tell the difference when you'd spent your whole life being told you were lucky anyone noticed you at all. Brothers and sisters of Ironclaw, Ronin's voice boomed across the clearing, silencing the murmurs. Tonight, we gather to honor tradition, to strengthen our pack, to choose the woman who will stand beside me as Luna. The crowd erupted in cheers. Elara's heart hammered so hard she thought it might crack a rib. Ronin's eyes swept over the assembled wolves, over Mira Thane, the Beta's daughter, who stood tall and proud with her chin raised, over Kira Dane, the head tracker, whose scars told stories of battles won, over a dozen other women who could have been Luna without anyone questioning it, and then his gaze landed on Elara. For a moment, everything stopped. The fire, the crowd, her breath. Then Ronin smiled. It wasn't the smile she remembered. It was thin, sharp, the kind of smile a predator gives before it strikes. Elara Quinn, he said, and the way he said her name made her stomach drop. Step forward. Her legs moved before her brain could catch up. She walked into the center of the circle, feeling every pair of eyes on her like knives. When she reached Ronin, she stopped, looking up at him with something that felt dangerously close to hope. Elara, he said again, louder this time. You've served this pack well. You've been loyal. The pause before that last word was deliberate. She heard it. Everyone heard it. But loyalty isn't enough to lead, Ronin continued. A Luna must be strong, fierce, a wolf others will follow without question. He turned to face the crowd, his voice rising. And you, Elara Quinn, are none of those things. The clearing went silent. Not the respectful silence of ceremony, but the stunned silence of a crowd watching a public execution. Elara's throat closed. Ronin, you're weak, he said, cutting her off. You can barely hold your shift. You flinch at raised voices. You have no family, no bloodline, no strength to offer this pack. He stepped closer, and she could smell the smoke and pine on him, the scent she used to find comforting. Now it just made her nauseous. I reject you, Elara Quinn. Before the moon, before the pack, before the ancestors, I reject you as my mate. The words hit her like a physical blow. She staggered back, her vision blurring. Someone laughed, a short, sharp bark of sound from somewhere in the crowd, then another, and another. Within seconds, the clearing was filled with it, laughter, jeers, the sound of a pack tearing apart one of its own. Did she actually think? An Omega Luna? Can you imagine? Poor thing, she really believed it. Ronin raised a hand and the laughter died. There's more, he said, his voice cold and clinical now. "By the laws of this pack, a rejected mate has no place among us. No rank, no protection." He looked down at her, and there was nothing in his eyes. No regret, no hesitation, just emptiness. "You have until dawn to leave Ironclaw territory. If you're still here when the sun rises, you'll be hunted as a rogue." Elara couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The world had narrowed to a single point of agony in her chest, spreading outward like poison. "You can't," she started, but her voice cracked. "I can," Ronan said, "and I have." He turned his back on her, addressing the pack. "Let this be a lesson. Weakness has no place in Ironclaw. Sentiment has no place in leadership. We are strong because we cut away the dead weight." The crowd roared its approval. Fists pumped in the air. Voices chanted Ronan's name like a war cry. And Elara stood there, alone in the center of it all, feeling something inside her crack and break and shatter into 1,000 pieces. She didn't remember leaving the clearing. One moment she was standing there, drowning in the noise and the hatred, and the next she was stumbling through the dark forest. Her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Her cabin, the small, drafty structure she'd called home for the last 3 years, looked even more pathetic than usual when she reached it. One room, a cot, a single shelf of books, and a trunk of clothes. This was all she had, all she'd ever had. She threw what she could into a worn canvas pack: clothes, a blanket, a hunting knife her father had given her before he died, a canteen matches. Her hand shook so badly it took 3 tries to buckle the straps. As she stepped outside, she heard footsteps. Her heart lurched. Was someone coming to make sure she left? To finish the job? But it was just Mira Thane, the beta's daughter, leaning against a tree with her arms crossed. In the moonlight, her perfect face was carved from ice. "Didn't think you'd have the guts to show your face again," Mira said, after that pathetic display. Elara didn't respond. She just adjusted her pack and started walking. "You know what the saddest part is?" Mira called after her. "You actually thought you mattered, that Ronan cared about you." She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "He was stringing you along from the start. It was a bet, Elara. He and the other alphas, they wanted to see how long they could make you believe you had a chance." Elara stopped walking. Her whole body had gone numb. 3 months?" Mira continued. "That's how long it took. Honestly, we thought you'd figure it out sooner. But you were so desperate to belong, you swallowed every lie he fed you." Something hot and violent surged in Elara's chest. She turned, her hands clenched into fists. "Why are you telling me this?" Mira shrugged. "Because I want you to know exactly how worthless you are. So when you're out there in the wild, alone and scared and dying, you'll remember that nobody wanted you. Nobody ever will." For a moment, just a moment, Elara felt something dark and terrible rise up inside her. Something that wanted to lunge at Mira, to make her hurt the way Elara hurt. But she didn't. Because that's what they expected. That's what they wanted. Proof that she was the unstable, emotional wreck they'd always said she was. So instead, she looked Mira dead in the eye and said, "I hope being his second choice keeps you warm at night." Then she turned and walked into the forest, leaving Mira's furious shout behind her. The first 3 days were the hardest. Elara had grown up in the pack, surrounded by people and structure and the constant hum of pack bonds. Being alone felt like having a limb amputated. The silence pressed in on her from all sides. Every snapping twig made her jump. Every shadow looked like a threat. She rationed her food, but it ran out faster than she'd planned. Hunting was harder without the pack's territory advantages, without the shared knowledge of prey routes. She caught a rabbit on the 4th day, but it took her hours and left her exhausted. On the 5th night, it started to rain. By the 6th, she was soaked through, shivering so hard her teeth chattered, huddled under a rocky overhang that barely kept the water off. On the 7th day, she got sick. Fever burned through her, turning her thoughts into soup. She drifted in and out of consciousness, unsure what was real and what was nightmare. In her delirium, she saw Ronan standing over her, laughing, saw the pack circling, their eyes hungry, saw her father reaching for her with hands that crumbled to ash. When she finally woke up, the fever had broken, but she was weak as a newborn. It took her an hour just to sit up, but she was alive. And that, she decided, was something. Over the following weeks, Elara learned things about herself she'd never known. She learned that she could go 3 days without food if she had to. She learned which plants were safe to eat and which would kill her. She learned to move through the forest without sound, to read tracks, to find water even when there was no stream in sight. She learned that the part of her she'd always been told to suppress, the part that whispered in her ear during hunts, that made her senses sharper when she was scared, wasn't weakness. It was survival. One night, 2 months after her exile, she woke to the sound of something moving outside her makeshift shelter. Something big. She grabbed her knife and crept to the entrance, her heart pounding. In the moonlight, she saw it. A massive gray wolf, easily twice the size of any pack wolf she'd ever seen. It was limping, one leg dragging uselessly, its fur matted with blood. It collapsed about 20 feet from her shelter, breathing hard. Elara should have stayed inside, should have let nature take its course. This was the frontier. Things died out here every day. But something in her chest pulled toward the wounded animal, something she didn't understand but couldn't ignore. She crept closer, knife ready, every instinct screaming at her to run. The wolf's eyes opened. They were gold, not yellow like pack wolves, but true gold, like molten metal. And they were aware. Intelligent. Human. This wasn't just a wolf. This was a shifter. A powerful one. Elara should have run, should have put as much distance between herself and this stranger as possible. Instead, she heard herself say, "I can help you, if you let me." The wolf's eyes narrowed, assessing her. Then, slowly, it bowed its head, and Elara's life changed forever. She dragged him into her shelter, a task that took every ounce of strength she had. He was massive even in wolf form, his muscles dense as stone. By the time she got him inside, she was panting and sweating despite the cold. She'd learned basic field medicine from the pack healers back when they still let her help. She cleaned his wounds with water heated over her small fire, packed them with moss and herbs she'd gathered. He growled when she set his broken leg, the sound vibrating through the small space, but he didn't snap at her. "Easy," she murmured, the way she'd talk to a spooked animal. "Easy. I'm trying to help." His eyes tracked her every movement, gold and unblinking. It took hours. By the time she finished, dawn was breaking outside, and her hands were stained with blood. She sat back against the wall, exhausted, watching his breathing slowly even out. "You're welcome," she said to the unconscious wolf. Then she closed her eyes and slept. When she woke, there was a man in her shelter. Elara jerked upright, scrambling for her knife, and froze. He was sitting against the opposite wall, watching her with those same gold eyes. He was bare-chested, his skin marked with scars that told stories of 100 battles. Dark hair fell to his shoulders. His face was all sharp angles and hard edges, handsome in the way a blade is handsome, beautiful and dangerous in equal measure. And his presence, it filled the small space like water filling a cup, heavy and inescapable. Elara's wolf, the part of her that had been quiet and subdued her whole life, suddenly woke up. It didn't cower. It didn't submit. It recognized something. "You saved my life," the man said. His voice was deep, rough from disuse or pain or both. Elara tightened her grip on the knife. "You're welcome. Who are you?" "Someone who shouldn't be alive right now." He looked down at his bandaged leg, then back at her. "Why did you help me?" "You don't know me. I could be anyone, could be dangerous." "You are dangerous," Elara said. "But you were hurt. And I—" She trailed off, unsure how to explain the pull she'd felt. The certainty. "You felt it," he said quietly. "Didn't you?" The bond trying to form. Her heart stopped. "That's not possible. I was already rejected. The bond can't— It doesn't work that way." "It does if you weren't actually bonded to begin with," the man said. "If the rejection never took. If you were never truly his mate." He leaned forward slightly, wincing. "Tell me something. When he rejected you, did you feel it break? Did you feel the bond snap?" Elara opened her mouth to say yes, and realized she couldn't, because she hadn't. She'd felt pain, humiliation, grief, but not the soul-deep agony of a true bond breaking. Everyone said it felt like dying, like having your heart ripped out of your chest. She'd felt nothing like that. "You were never bonded to him," the man said, "which means you were never truly rejected, which means—" He met her eyes. You're still free, still whole, still waiting for your real mate. And you think that's you? Elara said, trying to sound skeptical, even as something in her chest fluttered and pulled toward him. I don't think, he said. I know. The moment I smelled you, even half dead, I knew. You felt it too. That's why you helped me. Elara sat back, her mind reeling. This was insane. This was impossible. She'd spent years with Ronan, believing they had a connection, only to have it revealed as a lie. And now this stranger was claiming they were mates after knowing her for all of 5 minutes? You don't believe me, the man said. It wasn't a question. I don't know what to believe anymore, Elara said honestly. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. Then believe this. I owe you a life debt. You saved me when you had no reason to, when it would have been safer to let me die. He shifted, moving to stand despite his injured leg. I'll stay until I heal, then I'll leave, if that's what you want. But while I'm here, I'll protect you, teach you, help you survive out here. Why? Elara asked. Why would you do that? Because you're alone, he said simply. And because someone should have protected you a long time ago. Someone should have seen what you are instead of what you aren't. Something in Elara's chest cracked open at those words. She looked away quickly, blinking back the sting in her eyes. What's your name? Lucian, he said. Lucian Thorn. The name meant nothing to her, but something about the way he said it, like it carried weight, like it should mean something, made her nervous. I'm Elara, she said. Elara Quinn. I know, Lucian said and smiled for the first time. It transformed his face, softening the hard edges just slightly. You told me. Last night. While you were fixing my leg. You talked the whole time. Elara felt heat rise in her cheeks. What did I say? That you were terrible at this. That I better not die because you didn't save me just so I could bleed out anyway. That if I was going to survive, I'd better at least tell you my name when I woke up so you knew who you wasted all those bandages on. Despite everything, the pain, the exhaustion, the impossible situation, Elara laughed. It was a small sound, rusty from disuse, but real. I do talk when I'm nervous, she admitted. I noticed, Lucian said. It's not a bad thing. Most people aren't honest when they're scared. You are. Something about the way he looked at her when he said that made her wolf stir again, made that pull in her chest strengthen. She stood abruptly. You should rest. Your leg needs time to heal. And you? Lucian asked. When was the last time you slept more than a few hours? Elara didn't answer. She grabbed her canteen and headed for the entrance. I need to get water and check my traps. I'll be back by nightfall. Elara, Lucian called after her. She stopped but didn't turn around. Thank you, he said quietly, for not leaving me to die. Elara's throat tightened. Don't make me regret it, she said, and stepped out into the cold morning air. Over the next 2 weeks, Lucian healed with a speed that shouldn't have been possible. Whatever he was, whatever bloodline he came from, it was strong. Stronger than anything Elara had ever seen, and he kept his word. He taught her how to track prey not by sight, but by feeling, by reading the small disturbances in the air and earth. How to fight not with brute strength, but with precision, using an opponent's weight against them. How to tap into the part of herself she'd always been told to suppress, the instinct, the power that hummed beneath her skin. You've been holding yourself back your whole life, Lucian said one evening as they sat by the fire, shrinking yourself down to fit into a space that was never meant for you. Elara poked at the coals with a stick. I didn't have a choice. If I'd been myself, really myself, they would have cast me out sooner. No, Lucian said. They would have feared you. There's a difference. She looked at him skeptically. What's so fearsome about an Omega who can barely hold her shift? First, Lucian said, stop calling yourself that. Omega, Beta, Alpha. Those are pack structures. Hierarchies made up by people who needed a way to control others. They don't define what you are, what you're capable of. Then what am I? Elara asked, and hated how desperate she sounded. Lucian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Have you ever heard of the Seraphim bloodline? Elara shook her head. Most people haven't. It's old. Older than packs, older than the hierarchies. The Seraphim were wolves who served as bridges between the human world and the wild, between the physical and the spiritual. They were rare, powerful. and dangerous to anyone who tried to control them. He met her eyes across the fire. So the alphas hunted them down, killed them, bred the bloodline out of existence, or so they thought. Elara's heart was pounding. Why are you telling me this? Because I think that's what you are, Lucian said. I think that's what your pack felt in you and didn't understand. That's why they tried so hard to make you small, to convince you that you were weak. Because if you ever realized what you actually are, he smiled, sharp and fierce, you'd burn their whole hierarchy to the ground. Elara wanted to argue, to say he was wrong, that he was seeing something that wasn't there. But deep down, in a place she'd spent years trying to ignore, something whispered, what if he's right? That night, she dreamed of fire, of wings made of moonlight, of a voice that called her name in a language she'd never learned but somehow understood. When she woke, the sun was rising, and Lucian was standing at the entrance of the shelter, looking out at the forest. Your leg, Elara said, sitting up. You should still be resting. It's healed, Lucian said. His voice was different, distant. Elara, I need to tell you something. Her stomach dropped. What? He turned to face her, and she saw conflict written across his features. My name is Lucian Thorn, but that's not all I am. He took a breath. I'm the Alpha King of the Northern Territories. I rule over 17 packs. Thousands of wolves. The world tilted. You, what? I was ambushed, Lucian continued, betrayed by people I trusted. I barely escaped with my life. I came out here to die quietly, away from politics and power plays. He stepped closer. And then you saved me. A lone wolf with no pack, no protection, no reason to risk herself for a stranger. You saved me anyway. Elara couldn't breathe, couldn't process. Why didn't you tell me? Because for the first time in a decade, someone saw me as just me. Not a king, not a weapon, just a man who needed help. His gold eyes were intense, burning, and because I wanted to know who you were without the weight of my title influencing it. And now? Elara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Now I have to go back, Lucian said. I have responsibilities, people who need me. But Elara, he crossed the space between them in 2 strides, cupping her face in his hands. Come with me. Let me show you what you're capable of. Let me help you become what you were always meant to be. Every instinct in Elara's body screamed yes. The pull toward him was overwhelming now, a physical need. But fear held her back, fear of being hurt again, of trusting someone only to have them destroy her. I can't, she whispered. I can't do this again. I can't be someone's mistake. You're not a mistake, Lucian said fiercely. You're my mate, my equal, the other half of my soul. And I know you feel it too. I can see it in your eyes, hear it in your heartbeat. You're terrified because the bond is real this time, because this time it matters. Tears spilled down Elara's cheeks. What if you're wrong? What if I'm just… You're not, Lucian interrupted. And I'll spend every day for the rest of our lives proving it to you if I have to. But I need you to take a leap of faith here, Elara. I need you to trust me. Trust this. He pressed his forehead to hers. Come with me. Please. Elara closed her eyes, felt the bond thrumming between them, golden and unbreakable, felt the truth of it settling into her bones. She'd spent her whole life playing it safe, making herself small, trying to earn a place in a world that would never accept her. Maybe it was time to stop asking for permission. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll come with you. And when Lucian kissed her, the bond snapped into place with a force that shook the ground beneath them, that sent animals fleeing for miles in every direction, that felt like coming home and setting the world on fire all at once. For the first time in her life, Elara Quinn wasn't afraid. She was awakening. The journey to the Northern Territories took 5 days on foot, cutting through terrain that would have killed Elara 3 months ago. Now she moved through it like she'd been born to the wild, reading the land, sensing danger before it materialized, her body stronger and faster than it had ever been in the pack. Lucian watched her with something that looked like pride, or maybe hunger. With him, it was hard to tell the difference. You're holding back, he said on the 3rd day, as they navigated a rocky slope. I can feel it. You're still trying to make yourself smaller. I'm trying not to fall off a cliff, Elara shot back, her boots slipping on loose scree. You won't fall. Your body knows what to do. You just have to let it. He was moving beside her with that infuriating grace all-powerful shifters seem to have, like gravity was optional. Stop thinking. Start feeling. That's easy for you to say. You're not the one who spent 23 years being told that feeling anything was dangerous. Lucian stopped walking, turned to face her fully. Then unlearn it. Right now. Jump. Elara looked at him like he'd lost his mind. What? Jump down to that ledge. He pointed to an outcropping 15 feet below them. Your body can handle it. Your instincts know it. But your mind is still living in that pack, still following their rules. His eyes burned into hers. Jump, Elara. Trust yourself. Every rational thought in her head screamed, no. The ledge was too far. The landing too narrow. She'd break an ankle, crack her skull, plummet into the ravine below. But something deeper, something that had been waking up piece by piece since the night she saved Lucian, whispered, do it. Elara took a breath, closed her eyes, and jumped. The world went weightless. Wind rushed past her ears. For one terrifying moment, she was sure she'd miscalculated, that she'd die before she ever got to see what she could become. Her feet hit stone, her knees bent, absorbing the impact. She didn't stumble, didn't fall. She landed perfectly. When she opened her eyes, Lucian was already beside her, having made the jump look effortless. But he wasn't looking smug. He was looking at her like she had just done something extraordinary. There, he said quietly. That's who you really are. Elara's heart was racing, adrenaline singing through her veins. She felt alive in a way she never had before, powerful, capable, like her body was finally catching up to something her soul had always known. Again, she said. Lucian's grin was sharp and bright. Again. By the time they reached the borders of the Northern Territories on the 5th day, Elara had jumped, climbed, and run through terrain that should have been impossible. Her clothes were torn, her hands scraped. She was exhausted and exhilarated and completely, utterly changed. And then she saw the first patrol. 6 wolves emerged from the tree line, massive and battle-scarred, moving in perfect formation. When they saw Lucian, they shifted immediately, 6 men dropping to one knee in unison. My king, the leader said, his voice rough with emotion. We thought you were dead. Nearly was, Lucian said. Rise, Garrett, all of you. They stood, but their eyes kept flicking to Elara with open suspicion. She could feel their assessment, their doubt. Who is this ragged woman? Why is she with the king? This is Elara Quinn, Lucian said, his voice carrying an edge of command that made even Elara straighten. My mate, you will treat her as you would treat me. Understood? The temperature in the clearing dropped about 10 degrees. The guards' faces went carefully blank. The kind of blank that meant they were screaming on the inside. Yes, my king, Garrett said, but his eyes told a different story. They traveled the rest of the way with an armed escort, and Elara felt every second of their judgment like knives in her back. These wolves were warriors, bred for battle. She was a lone wolf who'd been cast out of a pack so small and insignificant these men probably didn't even know it existed. When the fortress came into view, Elara's breath caught. It wasn't a building. It was a compound, massive stone walls surrounding a complex of structures that looked like they'd been carved out of the mountain itself. Towers rose into the sky. Guards walked the battlements. This wasn't just a home. It was a stronghold, a declaration of power. Welcome to Ravenspire, Lucian said, the seat of the northern throne. The gates opened and they walked into chaos. People were everywhere, guards, servants, officials, all moving with purpose. And the moment they saw Lucian, everything stopped. Voices rose in shock and relief. People rushed forward, calling his name, reaching for him like he was a miracle made flesh. And through it all, Lucian remained steady, greeting people by name, accepting their relief with quiet grace. Being exactly what a king should be. Elara hung back, feeling small and out of place. Nobody looked at her except to wonder who she was and why she was here. Then a woman's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Lucian Thorne, you absolute bastard! The crowd parted and a woman strode through, tall, elegant, with silver blonde hair and ice blue eyes. She was beautiful in the way weapons were beautiful, dangerous and precise. Isla, Lucian said, and his smile was genuine. It's good to see you too. Good to see me. Good to... The woman, Isla, closed the distance and punched him in the shoulder hard enough to make a normal man stagger. Lucian barely moved. You disappear for 3 weeks. No word, no trace. Half the kingdom thinks you're dead, and you stroll back in like you've been on holiday? There were complications, Lucian said dryly. There always are with you. Isla's eyes landed on Elara, and they went sharp, calculating. And who's this? My mate, Lucian said simply. The courtyard went silent. Not the shocked silence from before. This was worse. This was the silence of people who couldn't believe what they were hearing. Isla's eyebrows rose so high they nearly disappeared into her hairline. Your mate. You've been gone 3 weeks and you come back with a mate. She looked Elara up and down, her expression unreadable. Does she have a name, or are we just calling her the mate from now on? Elara Quinn, Elara said, finding her voice. She refused to be talked about like she wasn't standing right there. And I can speak for myself, thanks. Something flickered in Isla's eyes. Approval, maybe? Or amusement? Can you now? Well, Elara Quinn, I'm Isla Morgrave, General of the Northern Guard, and the person who's been keeping this kingdom from falling apart while His Majesty here was off doing whatever idiotic thing nearly got him killed this time. She turned back to Lucian. You and I need to talk, privately, now. Later, Lucian said. First I need to… Now, Isla repeated, her voice dropping to a tone that suggested she wasn't asking. Lucian's jaw tightened, but he nodded. He looked at Elara. I'll have someone show you to your rooms. We'll talk when I'm done here. Our rooms, Isla corrected. Unless you're planning on hiding her in a broom closet, which, given the political shitstorm this is about to cause, might actually be the smarter move. Before Elara could respond, Isla grabbed Lucian's arm and hauled him toward the main building, already talking in a low, furious voice that didn't carry. And Elara was left standing alone in a courtyard full of strangers, feeling exactly like what she was, an outsider who didn't belong. A young woman approached, maybe 18, with dark curls and nervous eyes. Miss Quinn, I'm supposed to show you to your chambers. If you'll follow me… Elara forced a smile. Lead the way. The chambers turned out to be a suite of rooms that were bigger than the entire cabin she'd grown up in. Bedroom, sitting room, private bath. Furniture that looked like it cost more than most people made in a year. Windows that overlooked the mountains. It was beautiful, luxurious, overwhelming, and it felt like a cage. Is there anything you need? The girl asked. Food, a bath, fresh clothes? All of the above, Elara said honestly. And maybe some answers. What's your name? Sarah. Miss. I'm one of the household staff. Can you tell me something, Sarah? What's the problem with me being here? Sarah's eyes went wide. Oh, I couldn't possibly. That's not… I shouldn't… I'm not asking you to gossip, Elara said gently. I'm asking you to help me understand what I'm walking into. Sarah bit her lip. Then, in a rush, the king was supposed to marry Lady Morgrave's sister. It was arranged when they were children. Everyone's been expecting it for years. And now you're here, and the bond is real, and nobody knows what to do because you can't exactly break a true mate bond. But the political alliance was supposed to… She stopped, horrified at herself. I've said too much. No, Elara said quietly. You said exactly enough. Thank you for your honesty. After Sarah left, Elara stood at the window, watching the sun set over the mountains, and felt the weight of her new reality settling onto her shoulders. She'd escaped one hierarchy only to land in another, one where she had even less standing, even less right to be here. The door opened without knocking, and Lucian walked in, looking tired and frustrated. Isla told you, he said. It wasn't a question. A servant told me, Elara corrected, about your arranged marriage, about how I'm screwing up your political plans just by existing. Lucian crossed the room to her, but she held up a hand, stopping him. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Because it doesn't matter. I never agreed to the arrangement, never wanted it. The alliance was my father's idea, and he's been dead for 5 years. I've been delaying it, putting it off, hoping they'd get the message. And did they? No, because I didn't want to insult the Morgrave family by outright refusing. Isla's been a loyal general. Her sister is a good person. It would have been easier to just go through with it. He met her eyes. And then I met you, and nothing else mattered. Elara wanted to believe him, wanted to fall into the certainty in his voice, but she'd believed before, and it had destroyed her. "I can't be the reason your kingdom falls apart," she said quietly. "I can't be your political disaster. You're not. You're my mate, my queen. And anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me." "That's not how this works, Lucian. You know it's not. You're a king. You can't just—" "I can do whatever I damn well please," Lucian said, his voice hard. "I've bled for this kingdom, killed for it, sacrificed everything for it. The one thing I'm keeping for myself is you." He stepped closer, cupping her face. "I know you're scared. I know you don't trust this yet. But I need you to hear me. I chose you. Not because of politics or duty or obligation. Because you're mine, and I'm yours. And that's not changing." Elara closed her eyes, leaning into his touch despite herself. "What if I can't do this? What if I can't be what they need? Then you'll learn. Same as you learned to survive, same as you learned to jump." His thumb brushed her cheek. "I believe in you, Elara, even if you don't believe in yourself yet." Before she could respond, there was a sharp knock at the door. "My king," a voice called. "The council is assembling. They're demanding an audience." Lucian's jaw tightened. "Of course they are." He looked at Elara. "This is going to get ugly. If you want to stay here—" "No," Elara said, surprising herself. "If they're going to judge me, they can do it to my face." Lucian's smile was fierce and proud. "That's my girl." The council chamber was a large circular room with a massive table at its center. Around it sat 12 people, men and women of varying ages, all watching Elara with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Isla stood near the head of the table, her arms crossed. When Elara and Lucian entered, the room fell silent. "Let's get this over with," Lucian said, his voice carrying the weight of command. "You all have questions. Ask them." An older man with gray hair and a scar across his throat spoke first. "Who is she exactly?" "We've heard rumors, but no one seems to have any actual information." "Elara Quinn," Lucian said, "my mate, the future queen of the Northern Territories." "From which pack?" the man pressed. "Does it matter?" Lucian asked. "It absolutely matters. We need to know her bloodline, her alliances, her—" "She has none," Elara said, her voice steady even though her heart was racing. "No pack, no bloodline worth mentioning, no alliances except the one I have with your king." The silence that followed was deafening. A woman with red hair leaned forward. "You're a rogue." "I'm a survivor," Elara corrected. "I was cast out of Ironclaw Pack in the Southern Territories. I lived alone in the frontier. I saved your king's life when he was ambushed and dying. And then he claimed me as his mate because the bond demanded it." She met each council member's eyes in turn. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't plan it. But here I am. So you can accept it or not. I honestly don't care, but I'm not going anywhere." The red-haired woman's lips twitched. "Well, at least she's got spine." "This is unacceptable," another council member said, a thin man with pinched features. "A king can't just appear with some unknown rogue and declare her queen. There are protocols, procedures. The Morgrave alliance is over," Lucian said flatly. "There will be no marriage to Amara Morgrave. The bond is chosen, and I've accepted it." "You can't just—" "I can, and I have. This is not up for debate." The thin man's face turned red. The council has a right to advise," Lucian interrupted. "Not to dictate. I've listened to your concerns, I've heard your objections, and my answer is no. Elara stays. This is final." "Then you're making a mistake," the thin man said. "A mistake that will cost us dearly." "Maybe," Lucian said, "but it's my mistake to make." Isla, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. "I don't like this. For the record. But the king is right. You can't break a true mate bond. We've all felt the energy in this room. The bond is real." She looked at Elara, her expression hard. "But real or not, you're going to have to prove yourself. Being the king's mate isn't enough. These people need to know you can lead, can fight, can make the hard choices." "I know," Elara said quietly. "Do you?" Isla challenged. "Because from where I'm standing, you're a lone wolf who's been in civilization for all of 5 minutes. You don't know our laws, our customs, our politics. You don't know who our enemies are or how to navigate court. You're a liability. Then teach me, Elara said, her voice stronger now. I survived the frontier alone. I learned to hunt, to fight, to heal. I can learn this too. Isla studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Fine. Tomorrow morning, dawn, training grounds. If you want to be queen, you'll have to earn it. I'll be there, Elara said. The meeting ended shortly after, with the council members filing out in tense silence. Isla was the last to leave, pausing at the door to look back at them. For what it's worth, she said to Lucian, I hope you're right about her. Because if you're wrong, it's not just you who'll pay the price. It's all of us. Then she was gone, leaving Elara and Lucian alone in the vast chamber. That went well, Elara said dryly. Lucian actually laughed. You did well, better than I expected. I called myself a rogue and basically told them I don't care what they think. Exactly. You showed strength, honesty. They respect that more than you know. He pulled her close. You're going to be amazing at this. I know it. Elara wanted to believe him, but as she lay awake that night in the massive bed in her new chambers, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the fortress settling around her, doubt crept in. She'd survived the wilderness. But this, navigating politics, earning respect, becoming a queen, this was a different kind of survival. One she wasn't sure she was equipped for. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a voice that sounded suspiciously like Ronan's whispered, You'll never be enough. You were right to hide. Look what happens when you try to be more than you are. Elara clenched her fists in the sheets and forced the voice away. Tomorrow she'd start proving them wrong. All of them. Starting with Ela Moregrave. Dawn came too early. Elara dragged herself out of bed, muscles protesting, and dressed in the training clothes someone had left for her. When she made it to the training grounds, Isla was already there, along with about 20 other wolves, all watching her with varying degrees of skepticism. You're late, Isla said. The sun's barely up, Elara protested. Then you should have been earlier. On the battlefield, late means dead. Isla gestured to the assembled wolves. These are some of our best fighters. You're going to spar with them. All of them. One after another until either you drop or they do. Elara's eyes widened. All of them? Problem? No, Elara lied. No problem. Isla's smile was sharp. Good. Let's see what the future queen is made of. The first fighter was a woman with a shaved head and arms like tree trunks. She moved like a landslide, slow, inevitable, crushing. Elara dodged the first swing, barely. The second caught her in the ribs and sent her sprawling. Get up, Isla called. A queen doesn't stay down. Elara got up. The woman came at her again. This time, Elara remembered Lucian's training. Don't fight force with force. Use their weight against them. When the woman swung, Elara ducked under, grabbed her arm, and used her own momentum to flip her. The woman hit the ground hard. The watching wolves murmured in surprise. Better, Isla said. Next. The second fighter was faster. The third was smarter. The fourth fought dirty. Elara lost more than she won. Her lips split. Her eyes swelled. Her ribs screamed with every breath. But she didn't quit. She got up every time. Adapted. Learned. By the time she faced the 10th fighter, something had changed. The watching wolves weren't sneering anymore. They were watching with something like respect. And when she finally dropped the last fighter, a man twice her size who she'd taken down with a move Lucian taught her, the training ground erupted in cheers. Isla walked over, offering a hand. Elara took it, letting herself be pulled to her feet. Not bad, Isla said. For a rogue. Thanks, Elara panted. I think. You've got potential. Raw, unrefined, but there. Isla's expression softened slightly. I'm still not happy about this situation, but I can work with potential. She paused. One question, though. Do you love him, or are you just here because the bond says you should be? Elara thought about it, really thought. I don't know yet, she admitted. The bond is real. What I feel when I'm with him is real. But love, that takes time, trust, and I'm still learning how to trust again. Isla nodded slowly. Honest answer, I appreciate that. She started walking toward the fortress, and Elara fell into step beside her. Can I give you some advice? Please. Don't try to be what you think a queen should be. Be what you are. These people, they don't need another perfect royal. They need someone real, someone who fights, someone who survives. She glanced at Elara. You've already survived more than most of them ever will. Use that. Before Elara could respond, a guard came running up, his face pale. General Morgrave, we have a situation. Riders from the south. They're demanding an audience with the king. About what? Isla asked sharply. They wouldn't say, but their alpha is with them. The guard swallowed. Alpha Ronan Vex of Ironclaw Pack. The world tilted beneath Elara's feet. Ronan was here. Isla's eyes cut to her, sharp and assessing. Friend of yours? The one who cast me out, Elara said, her voice barely steady. Isla's expression went cold and dangerous. Then this is going to be interesting. Come on, you're about to get your first real test as future queen. They found Lucian in the Great Hall, already being briefed by his advisors. When Elara walked in, his eyes found hers immediately, concern flickering across his features. You knew, she said. I just found out. Elara, you don't have to be here for this. Yes, I do, she interrupted. She was terrified, her heart hammering against her ribs, but Isla's words echoed in her head. Be what you are, someone who survives. She'd survived Ronan once, she could do it again. Let them in, Lucian said to the guards. The doors opened and Ronan Vex walked into the hall. He looked exactly the same, tall, dark-haired, arrogant. Behind him were 6 of his pack members, including Mira Thane, whose perfect face twisted into shock when she saw Elara. Ronan's eyes swept the room, clearly looking for Lucian. They passed right over Elara without recognition. Then they snapped back. His expression shifted from confusion to shock to something that looked almost like fear. Elara? He said, his voice strangled. Alpha Vex, Lucian said, his tone coldly polite. To what do we owe this unexpected visit? But Ronan wasn't looking at Lucian. He was staring at Elara like she was a ghost. What are you? How are you? He took a step forward, and immediately 6 northern guards stepped between them, hands on weapons. Ronan stopped, looked around, seemed to finally process where he was and who he was facing. My apologies, King Thorn, he said, forcibly pulling himself together. I've come on official business. There's been a rogue problem in the southern territories. Attacks on pack borders. We're organizing a coalition to deal with it and wanted to request the North's support. I see, Lucian said. And this required you to come personally. I thought it showed respect, Ronan said. His eyes kept flicking back to Elara. I didn't expect to find, that is, I wasn't aware that Elara Quinn was my mate and future queen, Lucian finished, his voice dropping into something dangerous. No, I don't imagine you were, since you cast her out to die in the wilderness 3 months ago. The hall went deathly quiet. Mira's face went white. The other Ironclaw wolves looked between Ronan and Elara with dawning horror. There was a misunderstanding, Ronan said carefully. Pack politics. It wasn't personal. You rejected her in front of your entire pack, Lucian said, and his power filled the room like a pressure wave. Called her weak, defective, unfit. Then you exiled her to die alone. I didn't think... No, you didn't. Lucian rose from his seat, and even though Ronan was an alpha, even though he had his own power, he physically took a step back. The woman you threw away saved my life. She's stronger, smarter, and braver than you'll ever be, and she's mine now. Ronan's face cycled through a dozen emotions. Shock, anger, jealousy, fear. Finally, he seemed to settle on desperation. Elara, he said, ignoring Lucian entirely. Can we talk? Privately? Please. Every eye in the hall turned to her. This was it. The moment she dreamed about during those first terrible nights alone in the wild. Ronan, begging, realizing what he'd lost. She'd imagined screaming at him, telling him exactly what his rejection had done to her, making him feel every moment of pain and fear and loneliness. But standing here now, looking at him, she felt nothing. No rage, no satisfaction. Just a cold, distant observation that he looked smaller than she remembered, less significant, like he'd already faded into a past that no longer had any power over her. No, she said simply. Ronan blinked. What? I said no, we have nothing to talk about. But I was wrong, I see that now. You were never... He was fumbling, grasping. "I made a mistake. I want to fix it." "You can't," Elara said. Her voice was steady, calm. "What's done is done. You made your choice. I've made mine." "Elara, please." "Enough," Lucian said, his voice cracking like a whip. "You've had your answer. Now state your business properly, or get out of my kingdom." Ronan's jaw clenched, his hands fisted at his sides. For a moment, Elara thought he might actually challenge Lucian, which would have been suicide, and everyone in the room knew it. But then his shoulders slumped. "The rogue problem. We need help tracking them, containing them." "Send me the details through official channels," Lucian said dismissively. "I'll consider it. Now leave." "My king," Ronan tried. "Now." The guards moved forward. Ronan had no choice but to go, his pack members trailing behind him. But at the door, he turned back one last time. "I really am sorry," he said to Elara. "For all of it." "I know," Elara said, and then, because she couldn't help herself, "But it doesn't matter anymore. You don't matter anymore." His face crumpled. Then he was gone. The hall erupted in whispers the moment the doors closed. Elara stood there, shaking slightly, not sure if she wanted to laugh or cry or scream. Lucian was at her side in an instant, his hand on her back. "Are you all right?" "I don't know," she admitted. "I thought that would feel different, better, but it just feels empty." "That's because you've already moved past him," Lucian said. "He's not your story anymore. You are." Isla approached, and there was something like approval in her eyes. "Well handled. You could have gloated, could have made him suffer, but you took the high ground, showed strength without cruelty." She nodded once. "That's queen behavior." Over the following weeks, word of what happened spread through the Northern Territories and beyond. The story of the Omega who became the king's mate. The woman who'd been cast out and came back powerful. Some people thought it was romantic, others thought it was scandalous. But everyone agreed on one thing: Elara Quinn was not what they'd expected. She trained with Isla every morning, learning to fight, to lead, to command. She sat in on council meetings, asking questions that sometimes annoyed people but often revealed problems they hadn't considered. She walked through the fortress and the nearby villages, learning names, listening to concerns, refusing to hide behind her new title. And slowly, so slowly she almost didn't notice, people started to accept her. Not because she was perfect, but because she was trying, because she showed up, because she was real. But on a cold evening 2 months after Ronan's visit, everything changed again. Elara was in the library reading reports about border security when Lucian burst in, his face grim. "We have a problem," he said. "A big one." Elara's stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "The kind that might start a war." Lucian spread a map across the library table, his fingers stabbing at the western border. 3 villages, burned to the ground in the last week. Survivors are saying it was coordinated, organized, not rogues, an army. Elara's blood went cold. Whose army? That's the question. Lucian's jaw was tight. The attacks are happening in disputed territory between us and the Western Coalition. They're claiming we did it. We're saying they did, and neither side is backing down. "But you didn't order attacks." "Of course not. But someone wants us to look like we did." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "The coalition is demanding reparations, threatening war if we don't withdraw from the border entirely. My council is screaming for retaliation, and I'm stuck in the middle trying to figure out who's actually behind this before thousands of people die." Elara studied the map, her mind racing. The destroyed villages formed a pattern, a line cutting across territory that both kingdoms claimed. What if it's neither of you? What if someone's trying to start a war between the North and the West? Who would benefit from that? Someone who wants both kingdoms weak, distracted. She looked up at him. Someone who could move in while you're busy killing each other. Lucian's eyes sharpened. The Eastern clans. They've been quiet for years, but they've always wanted Northern territory. He swore under his breath. If you're right, this is worse than I thought. A sharp knock interrupted them. Isla entered without waiting for permission, her face grim. We've got another problem. The Western Coalition just sent an envoy. They're demanding an audience, now. Let them wait, Lucian said. They brought 300 soldiers with them. They're not asking nicely. Lucian and Elara exchanged a look. This is a trap, she said quietly. Probably. But I can't refuse to see them without looking guilty. He straightened. Assemble the guard. Full show of force. If they want to play dominance games, we'll remind them exactly who they're dealing with. 20 minutes later, the great hall was packed with northern wolves, guards lining the walls, council members in their seats, power radiating from every corner. Elara stood at Lucian's right, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes on her. She'd insisted on being present, despite Lucian's protests. If she was going to be queen, she needed to be here for this. The Western envoy entered, a tall woman with copper hair and amber eyes, flanked by 6 warriors. She moved with the controlled grace of someone who'd killed before and would again without hesitation. King Thorn, she said, her voice carrying across the hall. I am Commander Elara Quinn of the Western Coalition. I come bearing a message from High Chancellor Draven. Speak, Lucian said, his tone neutral. The Coalition demands immediate withdrawal from all disputed territories, reparations for the villages your forces destroyed, and the execution of whoever ordered the attacks. Her eyes were cold. You have 3 days to comply. After that, we consider it an act of war. The hall erupted in outraged shouts. Isla had to physically restrain one of the younger guards from lunging at the envoy. Lucian raised a hand and silence fell. My forces destroyed nothing. We don't burn villages. We don't slaughter civilians. If you have proof otherwise, present it. We have survivors who saw northern wolves, northern armor, northern weapons. Ashara's voice was hard. Are you calling them liars? I'm saying someone is framing us, and you're playing right into their hands. Convenient excuse. It's the truth, Elara said, stepping forward. Every head in the room turned toward her. Think about it. If the North wanted those villages, why burn them? Why not occupy them? Use them. Burning them serves no strategic purpose, unless you're trying to make it look like senseless aggression. Ashara's gaze locked onto her, assessing. And you are? Elara Quinn, the king's mate. Something flickered in Ashara's eyes. Recognition? Surprise? It was gone too quickly to read. The former Omega. Yes, we've heard the stories. Her tone made it clear what she thought of those stories. Tell me, does the North always let their queens play advisor in matters of war? The North lets their queens speak truth, Elara said evenly, which is more than I can say for the Coalition if you're willing to start a war based on convenient evidence and no investigation. Ashara's expression hardened. Careful, girl. You're in no position to— She's in exactly the position to question you, Lucian cut in, his voice dropping to something dangerous. And you'll address her with respect, or this audience is over. The temperature in the room plummeted. Ashara's warriors tensed, hands moving toward weapons. The northern guards did the same. For a moment, violence hung in the air like a held breath. Then Ashara smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Very well. Out of respect for your mate, I'll ask this. If you didn't order the attacks, who did? That's what we're trying to find out, Lucian said. Give us time to investigate. Let us prove our innocence. You have 3 days. Use them wisely. Ashara turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. The Coalition is offering asylum to any northern wolves who wish to leave before war breaks out. We're not monsters. We don't punish the innocent for their leaders' crimes. Get out, Lucian said quietly. Ashara and her warriors left. The moment the doors closed, chaos erupted. This is an insult. We should mobilize immediately. If they want war, we'll give them war. Enough, Lucian's voice cracked like thunder. We're not rushing into anything. Elara's right. This smells like a setup. We need information, not bloodshed. Then let me go, Elara said. The room went silent. Lucian turned to her slowly. What? Let me go to the border, to the destroyed villages. I can track, hunt. I've survived in worse conditions. I can find out who's really behind this. Absolutely not, Lucian said flatly. Why not? I'm the one person here nobody knows. Nobody expects. I can move quietly, ask questions. You could also die, Lucian cut in. It's too dangerous. Everything is dangerous right now, Elara shot back. You said it yourself. We need proof. Well, I can get it. Isla was watching them both with calculating eyes. She's not wrong. A small, unknown operative could get further than an official investigation. especially if the real enemy is watching for exactly that. You're not helping, Lucian said to Isla. I'm being practical, which is my job. Isla looked at Elara. If you go, you'd need backup, training, a cover story. Then provide them, Elara said. I said no, Lucian repeated, his voice hard. Elara met his eyes. You don't get to make that choice for me. You're my mate, not my jailer. The hall went deathly quiet. Nobody breathed. This was dangerous ground, a public challenge to the king's authority from his own mate. Lucian's eyes flashed gold. We're not discussing this here. Why not? Because it makes you look weak? Because your counsel might question your judgment? Elara took a step closer, lowering her voice, but not backing down. I've spent my whole life letting people make decisions for me. Tell me what I could and couldn't do. And look where it got me, cast out and left to die. I'm done being protected. I'm done being sidelined. If I'm going to be queen, I need to act like one. And right now that means doing what needs to be done. Lucian's jaw worked. The bond between them thrummed with tension, his fear for her safety, her desperate need to prove herself. Finally, he turned to the council. Clear the room, all of you, now. They filed out in tense silence. Isla was the last to leave, giving Elara a look that might have been approval or might have been a warning. Hard to tell with her. When they were alone, Lucian rounded on her. Do you have any idea what you're asking? The border is a war zone. If you're caught, I won't be. You don't know that. You're good, Elara, but you're not invincible. One mistake and you're dead. Or worse, captured and used against me. So you'd rather sit here and wait for war, for thousands to die because we couldn't prove the truth? I'd rather you stay alive, Lucian said, his voice breaking slightly. I just found you. I can't lose you. Elara's anger softened. She closed the distance between them, taking his hands. You won't. I promise. But Lucian, I need to do this. Not just for the kingdom, for me. I need to prove I'm more than just your mate, that I have value beyond the bond. You do. You already do. Not to them, she said, gesturing toward the door. Not to the council, or the people, or even myself sometimes. I'm still the Omega they rejected, still the girl who got lucky. Until I do something that matters, something real, I'll always wonder if they're right. Lucian closed his eyes, and she could feel his internal war through the bond, every protective instinct screaming at him to lock her in the fortress and keep her safe, every rational thought telling him she was right. If I agree, he said finally, you take Isla with you, and a strike team, and you follow her orders, no arguments. Deal. And you check in every day. Miss one check-in, and I'm sending the entire army to find you. That seems excessive. Those are my terms. Elara smiled despite the situation. Fine. Yes, I agree. Lucian pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. If anything happens to you, I will burn the world down to get you back. You understand that? I do. Good. Because I mean it. They left before dawn 3 days later, Elara, Isla, and 4 of the Northern Guard's best trackers. They traveled in civilian clothes, avoiding main roads, moving through the wilderness like ghosts. Isla set a brutal pace. If you can't keep up, speak now, she said on the first day. I'll keep up, Elara promised. And she did. Barely. The months of training with Lucian and Isla had made her stronger, faster, but these soldiers were career warriors. Keeping pace with them pushed Elara to her absolute limit. On the 3rd day, they reached the first destroyed village. It was worse than Elara had imagined. The buildings were ash and charred timber. Bodies still lay in the streets. They'd come too fast for anyone to bury the dead. The smell of smoke and death hung heavy in the air. Spread out, Isla ordered quietly. Look for anything that doesn't fit the official story. Tracks, weapons, survivors. Elara moved through the ruins, her stomach churning. Most of the dead were elderly or young, those who couldn't run fast enough. She found a child's doll half buried in ash and had to look away, blinking back tears. Elara, one of the trackers called. Over here! She found him crouched near the remains of what had been a barn. He was holding something, a piece of armor, blackened by fire but still recognizable. Northern armor, with the Ravenspire crest clearly visible. That doesn't make sense, Elara said. If you're framing someone, you don't leave evidence lying around. You make it look authentic, but deniable. Unless you want it found, Isla said, appearing beside them. Unless the whole point is to have undeniable proof. She turned the armor over in her hands. This is real, not a fake, which means someone from the north was here. The question is why? Maybe someone from the north is the traitor, another tracker suggested. Elara's stomach dropped. She hadn't considered that. What if the threat wasn't external? What if someone inside Lucian's own kingdom was orchestrating this? Keep searching, Isla said. If there's a traitor, there'll be more evidence. They searched for hours, found more northern equipment, more proof of northern involvement. By the time the sun started setting, Elara's hope was fading. Then she found the survivor. She was checking the ruins of a cellar when she heard it, a soft whimper, barely audible. She froze, listening. There, again. Someone's alive down here, she called. Isla and the others rushed over. Together, they cleared the debris and found a girl, maybe 14, barely conscious, trapped beneath a fallen beam. They got her out, gave her water, wrapped her in a blanket. She stared at them with eyes that had seen too much. "What's your name?" Elara asked gently. "Sarah," the girl whispered. "Sarah, can you tell us what happened? Who attacked you?" The girl's eyes filled with tears. "Soldiers. They came at night, wearing armor like yours." She pointed at one of the northern guards. Elara's heart sank. "Are you sure they were northern?" I don't know. They looked like it, sounded like it, but..." Sarah frowned, struggling to remember through the trauma. Something was wrong. Their eyes. Their eyes? Isla leaned forward. "What about them?" "They were empty. Like they weren't really there, like something else was controlling them." Sarah shuddered. "And they moved wrong. Too fast. Too coordinated, like puppets." Isla and Elara exchanged a look. "Possession," Isla breathed. "Or compulsion. Someone's using magic to control northern wolves." "Who has that kind of power?" Elara asked. "Not many. It takes blood magic. Old magic. The kind that's been forbidden for centuries because of what it costs." Isla stood. "We need to get this information back to Lucian. Now." But before they could move, one of the guards called out, his voice sharp with warning. "We've got company. Multiple wolves. Incoming fast." They were surrounded in seconds. At least 20 wolves, all in Western Coalition armor, all with weapons drawn. Commander Ashara stepped out of the tree line, her expression cold. "Well, this is interesting. The Northern King's mate, investigating the crime scene. How very incriminating." "We're here for the truth," Elara said, stepping forward despite Isla's warning hand on her arm. "The same truth you should want if you actually care about justice." "And what truth have you found?" Ashara asked. Elara made a split-second decision. Trust or deception? She chose trust. That someone's using blood magic to control northern wolves, making them attack these villages to start a war between our kingdoms. Ashara's expression didn't change. Convenient theory. Any proof? A survivor who described possession. Northern equipment that was deliberately left to be found. A pattern of attacks designed for maximum political impact, minimum strategic value. Elara met her eyes. "Tell me you don't see it. Tell me this doesn't feel wrong to you." For a long moment, Ashara said nothing. Then, slowly, she lowered her weapon. "I've had similar doubts. The attacks are too obvious, too theatrical. But my superiors refuse to consider alternatives. They want blood." "Then help us find the real enemy," Elara urged, "before thousands die for someone else's game. And if you're lying, if this is a trick, then you'll have me as a hostage, a pretty valuable one from what I understand." "Elara, no," Isla started. "It's the only way," Elara interrupted. She looked at Ashara. "Let my people go. Let them report what we found. I'll stay with you as insurance. If we're lying, you can kill me and the war starts anyway. If we're telling the truth, maybe we can stop this together." Ashara studied her for a long, tense moment. "You're either very brave or very stupid." "Probably both." A smile ghosted across Ashara's face. "Fine. Your people go. You stay. But any sign of betrayal and you die first. Understood?" "Understood." "Absolutely not," Isla said. "Lucian will have my head." "Lucian will understand," Elara said, hoping that was true. Go. Report what we found. Tell him I'm safe. Isla looked like she wanted to argue, but she knew strategy. This was the play that gave them the best chance. If they hurt you, they won't. Will you? Elara looked at Ashara. Not if you cooperate. Isla and the others left, casting worried glances back until they disappeared into the trees. Elara was alone with enemy soldiers, in disputed territory, with no backup and no guarantee she'd survive the night. She'd made worse decisions. Probably. Ashara led them to a camp a few miles away. It was military efficient, tents in precise rows, guards posted at regular intervals, everything designed for quick deployment or evacuation. They put Elara in a tent under guard. Not bound, but definitely imprisoned. She sat on a bedroll, wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Hours passed. Then Ashara entered, carrying 2 cups of something that smelled like coffee. Drink, she said, offering one to Elara. It's not poisoned. If I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. Elara took it. The warmth felt good against her hands. Thank you. Ashara sat across from her. Tell me something. Why are you really here? A mate doesn't usually involve herself in war strategy. Because I'm not just a mate. I'm trying to be a queen. And queens don't hide while their people suffer. Noble sentiment, but you're untrained, unproven. You could have stayed safe in the fortress. Ashara tilted her head. So why didn't you? Elara thought about lying, about giving the politically correct answer, but something about Ashara's directness made her tell the truth. Because I need to prove I'm not what they all think I am. The weak Omega who got lucky, the girl who doesn't belong. She met Ashara's eyes. I'm tired of people underestimating me. I'm tired of underestimating myself. Ashara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I was born to a brothel worker in the western slums. No family, no name, no prospects. I joined the coalition army at 13 because it was that or starve. She rolled up her sleeve, showing scars that looked like brands. These are from my first year. They marked us, the disposable ones. The soldiers they'd throw into the meat grinder and not think twice about. Elara stared at the scars, feeling sick. But I survived, and I fought, and I clawed my way up through sheer bloody-minded refusal to die. Ashara pulled her sleeve back down. So I understand what you're doing, and why. But here's what I learned. Proving yourself to them doesn't matter. You have to prove it to yourself. And even then, they'll find reasons to doubt you. So what do I do? Stop trying to earn their respect. Take it. Own your power and make them deal with it. Ashara stood. Get some rest. Tomorrow we're going to the next village site. If your theory about blood magic is right, there'll be traces. If you're wrong, she shrugged. Well, we'll deal with that when we come to it. Elara slept fitfully, dreaming of fire and empty eyes. She woke before dawn to the sound of commotion outside. She emerged from the tent to find the camp in chaos, soldiers running, weapons being drawn, and at the center of it all, Lucian. He stood in the middle of the camp, surrounded by 50 northern wolves, his power rolling off him in waves. When he saw Elara, something in his eyes ignited. You have 3 seconds to release my mate, he said to Ashara, his voice deadly calm, or I start killing everyone here. She came willingly, Ashara said, but her hand was on her weapon. As insurance while we investigate, I don't care. Elara, come here. Elara's heart was pounding. Part of her wanted to run to him, but another part, the part that was trying to be more than just his mate, stood her ground. I'm fine, Lucian. We're working together to find the truth. Working together? Lucian's laugh was harsh. You're a prisoner. I'm a negotiator. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. He took a step forward. Every Western soldier tensed. You've been gone 4 days. 4 days with no word, no contact, no way of knowing if you were alive or dead. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I know, I'm sorry, but we're close to answers. Real answers. Give us more time. No, this ends now. You're coming home. You can't just order me around like one of your soldiers, Elara said, anger flaring. I made a choice, a hard choice, but mine. A choice that could have gotten you killed. So what? The words burst out of her loud and raw. So what if I died? At least I'd have died doing something that mattered. At least I'd have been more than just the Omega who got lucky. The camp went silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Lucian stared at her, and she could see the moment her words hit him, the pain in his eyes. "Is that really what you think?" he asked quietly. "That you're just lucky? That you don't matter unless you're bleeding for someone else's approval?" Elara's throat tightened. "I don't know what I think anymore. All I know is that I can't go back to being protected and hidden. I can't be the person everyone makes decisions for." "Then don't be." Lucian's voice was steady now. "Be the queen who makes her own choices. But be smart about it. Don't throw your life away trying to prove a point to people who will never appreciate it anyway." Before Elara could respond, one of Lucian's trackers ran up, his face pale. "My king, we found something in the northern woods. You need to see this." They followed him, Elara, Lucian, Ashara, and a combined force of northern and western wolves who'd silently agreed to a temporary truce. What they found made Elara's blood run cold. A ritual site, symbols carved into trees, a circle of stones stained with old blood, and in the center, strung up between two massive oaks, bodies. Northern wolves, all wearing the armor that had been found at the attack sites. All dead, all with their eyes carved out. "Blood magic," Ashara breathed. "You were right." "This is recent," one of the trackers said. "Within the last day." Lucian moved closer to the bodies, his expression darkening with each step. "I know these wolves. They went missing 2 months ago. We thought they deserted." "They were taken," Elara said, the pieces clicking into place. "Kept alive for this. The mage used them like weapons, then disposed of them when they were no longer useful. Which means the real enemy is still out there," Ashara said, "still capable of doing this again." Before anyone could respond, the air shifted, the temperature dropped, and from the shadows around the clearing, figures emerged. They moved wrong, stiff and jerky. Their eyes were hollow, empty, possessed. "Defensive positions," Lucian roared, but there were too many. At least 50 possessed wolves, all former northern soldiers, all moving with that terrible coordinated grace Sarah had described. And behind them, stepping into the clearing with a smile that made Elara's skin crawl, Ronan Vex. But not Ronan. Not really. His eyes were wrong, too bright, too aware, like something ancient and hungry was looking out through his face. "Hello, Elara," he said, and his voice had layers to it, echoes of something inhuman. "I've been waiting for you." Lucian moved in front of her instantly, a growl building in his chest. "What have you done, Ronan?" "Me?" "Nothing. I'm just the vessel." Ronan tilted his head. "But my master. My master has such plans. War between North and West, both kingdoms weakened, ripe for conquest." His eyes fixed on Elara. "And you, little Omega. You were supposed to die in the wilderness. Such a persistent creature, so determined to matter." "Who's controlling you?" Elara demanded, even as fear coiled in her gut. "Someone who's been waiting centuries for the hierarchies to tear themselves apart. Someone who remembers when wolves like you were properly feared." Ronan's smile widened. "But don't worry, you'll meet him soon. He's very interested in you, in what you might become, if you survive what comes next." He raised his hand and the possessed wolves attacked. Chaos erupted. Northern and Western soldiers fought side by side against an enemy that felt no pain, no fear, no hesitation. Elara grabbed a fallen weapon, her training kicking in. She fought beside Lucian, their movements synchronized through the bond. But there were too many. For every possessed wolf they dropped, 2 more appeared. They were being overwhelmed. "Fall back," Ashara shouted. "Retreat to the—" A possessed wolf grabbed her from behind. Elara reacted on instinct, driving her blade through its chest. It dropped, and Ashara nodded thanks, already turning to face the next threat. Through the madness, Elara kept her eyes on Ronan. He stood at the edge of the clearing, watching the carnage with detached interest, directing the possessed wolves with small gestures. If they could take him down, maybe the possession would break. Maybe they'd have a chance. Elara made a decision, probably a stupid one. She broke from the defensive line and ran straight at Ronan. "Elara, no!" Lucian's shout was drowned in the sounds of battle. Ronan saw her coming. His smile never faltered. "Yes. Come closer. Let me show you what you really are." She reached him, blade raised, and he caught her wrist with impossible speed. His touch burned. Power surged through the contact point, and Elara screamed as something inside her cracked. The world went white, then red, then gold. And when Elara opened her eyes, she wasn't herself anymore. She was more. Power flooded her veins. Ancient, terrible, beautiful. The seraphim blood Lucian had told her about, it wasn't dormant anymore. It was awake, and it was furious. Elara didn't remember what happened next. Not clearly. She remembered light pouring from her skin, remembered Ronan's shocked expression, remembered every possessed wolf in the clearing dropping simultaneously, the magic controlling them shattered by the sheer force of her awakening. When the light faded, Ronan was on his knees, blood pouring from his eyes and nose. The possession was broken. He was just Ronan again, terrified and confused and dying. What did you do to me?" he gasped. "I survived you," Elara said. Her voice didn't sound like her own. "That's what I do." Then her legs gave out, and the world went dark. Elara woke to the smell of herbs and smoke. Her body felt like it had been torn apart and badly reassembled. Every muscle screamed, her head pounded. When she tried to open her eyes, even the dim candlelight felt like knives. "Easy," Lucian's voice, close and rough with exhaustion. "Don't move yet." She forced her eyes open anyway. She was in a tent, field medical setup from the look of it. Lucian sat beside her cot, looking like he hadn't slept in days, dark circles under his eyes, jaw tight with worry. "How long?" Her voice came out as a croak. 2 days? You've been in and out." He pressed a cup of water to her lips. "The healers weren't sure you'd wake up at all." Memory flooded back. The clearing, the possessed wolves, Ronan, and then the power. That terrible, beautiful power that had ripped through her like lightning through a tree. "What happened to me?" she whispered. "Your seraphim blood fully awakened. The healers say it's a miracle you survived. Most people who go through that kind of transformation either die or go mad." Lucian's hand was shaking as he set down the cup. "You scared the hell out of me." "Where's Ronan?" "Alive, barely. The possession burned through him pretty badly when you broke it. He's been unconscious since the clearing, but the healers think he'll live." Lucian's expression darkened. "When he wakes up, we'll find out who is controlling him, what they're planning." Elara tried to sit up. Pain lanced through her ribs, and she gasped. "I said don't move," Lucian said, gently pushing her back down. "You shattered the possession magic on 50 wolves simultaneously. The backlash nearly killed you. You need rest." "I need to know what's happening." "The war? On hold. Temporarily." A new voice. Ashara stepped into the tent, looking almost as exhausted as Lucian. "Turns out when you publicly break blood magic in front of witnesses from both kingdoms, it changes the conversation." "The coalition believes us?" Elara asked. "Some of them. Others think it's an elaborate northern trick." Ashara pulled up a stool. "But the evidence is hard to ignore. Dead northern wolves used as puppets. Ronan Vex possessed by someone powerful enough to control an army. An unknown enemy trying to pit us against each other." She met Alara's eyes. "You bought us time. Maybe enough to find the real threat before it's too late." "What about the possessed wolves, the ones I freed?" "Confused, traumatized. Most don't remember anything from the time they were controlled." Lucian's voice was tight. "We lost 18 in the clearing. Good soldiers, people I knew." Guilt twisted in Elara's chest. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You saved the rest, and you gave us a chance to stop this before thousands more die." He looked at her with something fierce and proud. "You did exactly what you said you would. You proved yourself." "To who? I'm still just—" "Stop," Lucian interrupted. "You're not just anything anymore. You broke blood magic that should have been unbreakable. You awakened a bloodline that was supposed to be extinct. Every wolf in both camps felt what you did. They're not questioning whether you belong anymore, Elara. They're afraid of you." That stopped her cold. "Afraid?" "Terrified," Ashara confirmed. "I've got soldiers asking if you're going to possess them next. Western Command wants to know if you're a weapon they should worry about." She leaned forward. "So here's the question. What are you going to do with that fear?" Elara had no idea how to answer that. She'd spent her whole life trying to be less, smaller, quieter. The idea of being feared was so foreign, it didn't feel real. I don't want them afraid of me, she said. I want them to trust me. Then you'll have to show them you're not a threat, Elara said, which is going to be hard, considering you just demonstrated you can shatter minds with a thought. I didn't mean to. I don't even know how I did it. That's even more concerning, Elara said bluntly. Uncontrolled power is dangerous power. Then help me control it, Elara said. She looked between them. Both of you. Teach me. Show me how to use this without hurting anyone. Lucian and Elara exchanged a glance. Some silent communication passed between them. It won't be easy, Lucian said finally. Seraphim magic is old, unpredictable. Most of the people who knew how to train it are long dead. Then we'll figure it out, Elara said. Like I figured out how to survive alone, like I figured out how to fight. I'm good at learning hard things. A small smile crossed Lucian's face. Yeah, you are. Over the next week, Elara learned just how hard it was going to be. The power inside her was like trying to hold lightning in her bare hands, wild, chaotic, burning. Every time she tried to use it deliberately, it either fizzled to nothing or exploded with 10 times the force she'd intended. She practiced in a clearing far from both camps, with Lucian and Isla taking turns trying to help her find control. It was frustrating work, exhausting. More than once she wanted to quit. Again, Isla said after Elara had accidentally set a tree on fire for the third time. I can't. I'm done. You're not done until I say you're done. Again. Elara gritted her teeth and focused. Tried to pull the power up gently this time. Feel it instead of forcing it. The energy rose through her like heat, and this time when she released it, it came out as a controlled pulse instead of an explosion. The target dummy she'd aimed at didn't burst into flames. It just stopped, frozen mid-swing. Better, Isla said. You're learning to modulate. Keep that up, and you might not accidentally kill someone. Your encouragement is overwhelming. I'm not here to encourage you. I'm here to make sure you don't become the next threat we have to put down. Isla's expression was hard. That power inside you could save us or destroy us. Which one it becomes depends entirely on whether you can master it. No pressure, Elara muttered. There's always pressure. Get used to it. Isla gestured to the dummy. Now do it again, and this time hold it for 30 seconds. By the time Lucian came to relieve Isla that evening, Elara could barely stand. He caught her when her legs gave out, lifting her easily. Isla's trying to kill me, Elara said into his shoulder. Isla's trying to make sure you survive what's coming. He carried her back toward camp. She's not wrong to push you. Every day we're hearing new reports, more villages attacked, more evidence of blood magic. Whoever's behind this is getting bolder. Any word from Ronan? He woke up yesterday. Barely coherent. Kept screaming about eyes in the dark and a voice that promised him everything he wanted. Lucian's jaw tightened. He says he doesn't remember agreeing to the possession, just that he was angry after seeing you at Ravenspire, wanted his power back, his pride, and something offered him that chance. Something? He can't describe it, or won't. The healers think the possession damaged his mind. He keeps slipping in and out of lucidity. Elara felt a complicated mix of emotions. Ronan had hurt her, destroyed her, but seeing him broken and mad wasn't as satisfying as she'd once imagined it would be. What happens to him now? That's up to his pack. Ironclaw has sent representatives to collect him. He'll face judgment there for whatever crimes they decide he committed. Lucian looked down at her. Do you want to see him before he goes? Did she? Part of her wanted to look him in the eye one more time, to see if there was any recognition, any regret. No, she said finally. He's not my problem anymore. Good, because you've got bigger problems to worry about. They reached the command tent to find it packed with people, northern and western officers, scouts, messengers. Maps covered every surface. Everyone was talking at once. Elara saw them enter and cut through the chaos. We've got a situation. A bad one. How bad? Lucian asked, setting Elara on her feet but keeping a steadying hand on her back. The attacks have stopped. All of them. Completely. That's good, isn't it? Elara said. No, Isla said, appearing from the crowd. It means whoever's orchestrating this is done with the distraction phase. They're moving to the next step. What next step? Elara pointed to this map. Every attack site forms a pattern. We didn't see it before because we were looking at them individually, but when you plot them all together, she traced her finger across the map, connecting the villages. The line formed a rough circle, a massive one, encompassing hundreds of miles of territory. It's a ritual circle, Lucian breathed. The villages weren't targets, they were anchor points. For what? Elara asked, though part of her didn't want to know the answer. Summoning, binding, maybe both. Isla's expression was grim. Whatever it is, it's going to happen soon. All the blood spilled at those sites. It's been feeding something, building power. Then we destroy the anchor points, Elara said. Break the circle before the ritual completes. We can't. Most of the sites are in ruins. The magic's already set. Trying to disrupt it now could make things worse. Ashara looked at her. But there might be another way. If the ritual is designed to summon something, it needs a focus point, a place where all the power converges. The center of the circle, Lucian said, already calculating. If we can find it, we can defend it, stop whatever's trying to come through. Or kill it when it arrives, Isla added. They spent the next hour plotting coordinates, searching for the exact center of the massive ritual circle. When they finally found it, Elara's blood went cold. That's impossible, she said. The center point was deep in the frontier, in the exact area where she'd survived alone for 3 months, where she'd saved Lucian, where her seraphim blood had first started to wake. It's not a coincidence, Lucian said quietly. Whoever's behind this, they knew you'd be there, knew what would happen when you saved me. The whole thing was orchestrated. But why? What do I have to do with any of this? Seraphim blood, Isla said. If the ritual needs powerful magic to complete, your awakening might have been part of the plan. They needed you to become what you are. The implications made Elara's head spin. Her exile, meeting Lucian, the awakening, all of it had been manipulated? No, she said, anger building. No, I don't accept that. I made my own choices. I survived because I fought to survive, not because some puppet master wanted me to. Maybe, Ashara said. Or maybe your choices were exactly what they predicted. Either way, the ritual's happening, and we need to be there to stop it. When? Lucian asked. 3 days, during the new moon. That's when the power will peak. Ashara looked around the room. We'll need every soldier we can muster, northern and western, working together. This isn't about territory or politics anymore. This is survival. The coalition will never agree to a joint operation, one of the western officers said. High Chancellor Draven still thinks this is a northern conspiracy. Then we don't ask permission, Ashara said flatly. I'll take my forces. If Draven wants to court-martial me after we save his kingdom, that's his problem. The same goes for any northern soldier who volunteers, Lucian said. This is voluntary. I won't order anyone to fight alongside former enemies. But when the call went out, nearly every soldier in both camps volunteered. Whatever fear or mistrust had existed between North and West, the threat of blood magic and unknown summoning rituals was worse. They had 3 days to prepare. 3 days to march to the frontier and set up defenses. 3 days for Elara to get her power under enough control that she wouldn't accidentally kill her own allies. The pressure was suffocating. On the second night, Elara couldn't sleep. She sat outside her tent, staring at the stars, trying to quiet the fear thrumming through her veins. Can't sleep either? Ashara appeared from the shadows, carrying 2 cups of something that smelled like whiskey. Too much in my head, Elara admitted, accepting a cup. They sat in silence for a while. Then Ashara said, I've been in a lot of battles, seen a lot of impossible situations. This one's up there with the worst. That's not comforting. Wasn't trying to comfort you, just stating facts. Ashara took a drink. But here's another fact. I've seen you fight. Seen you adapt. You've got something most soldiers never develop, the ability to do what needs to be done, even when you're terrified. I'm terrified all the time. I know. That's what makes you effective. The ones who aren't scared are the ones who get everyone killed. Ashara looked at her. The soldiers are watching you, both sides. They don't care about politics or bloodlines. They care about whether you'll stand with them when things get bad. And so far, you always have. I don't feel like a leader. Good leaders never do. It's the ones who think they're born for it who usually screw everything up. Ashara stood. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be hell, and the day after that will be worse. The march to the frontier was brutal. They moved fast, pushing through terrain that slowed down the supply wagons. By the time they reached the center point of the ritual circle, everyone was exhausted. The location was a valley surrounded by cliffs, natural amphitheater, perfect for focusing energy. Ancient stone pillars dotted the valley floor, covered in symbols that made Elara's skin crawl just looking at them. "This place is old," Isla said, studying the pillars. "Older than the packs, older than the kingdoms. Whatever ritual was designed for this site, it was planned a long time ago. They set up defensive positions, archers on the cliffs, infantry in formation around the pillars. Elara stood at the center with Lucian, Isla, and Ashara, waiting for whatever was coming. The new moon rose, and the ground began to shake. The symbols on the pillars blazed to life, glowing red like fresh blood. The air grew thick, hard to breathe, and from the earth itself something started to rise. It wasn't a creature, not exactly. It was more like a tear in reality, a wound in the fabric of the world, pulsing with dark energy. And through that tear, things started to come through. They looked like wolves, but wrong, twisted. Their bodies flickered between solid and shadow. Their eyes burned with the same empty light Elara had seen in the possessed. "Shadow beasts," Isla breathed, "from the void between worlds. How the hell did they summon—" "Doesn't matter," Lucian cut in. "Kill them before they establish a foothold." The battle was chaos. The shadow beasts moved like smoke, impossible to pin down. Normal weapons passed through them half the time. When they did land hits, the creatures barely seemed to notice. Elara tried to use her power, but every time she gathered energy, the tear in reality pulsed and drained it away. Whatever was creating the rift was feeding on magic, using it to grow stronger. "We can't fight them in the portal," Ashara shouted over the sounds of battle. "We need to choose, hold the beasts or close the rift." "If we don't close the rift, they'll keep coming forever," Lucian said. "And if we focus on the rift, the beasts will slaughter everyone," Isla countered. Elara looked between them, her mind racing. There had to be a way. Had to be something she was missing. Then she saw it. The pillars. The symbols. They weren't just decorative, they were part of the ritual structure. Channels for the energy feeding the rift. "The pillars," she said. "They're the anchors. If we destroy them, we might disrupt the ritual." "Might?" Ashara said. "I'm working on limited information here," Elara shot back. "But it's the best option we have." "Do it," Lucian said. "Isla, Ashara, hold the line. Elara and I will take out the pillars." They moved fast, fighting through shadow beasts to reach the first pillar. Elara placed her hands on the cold stone, feeling the dark energy thrumming through it. She pulled her power up, pushed it into the pillar, and the backlash nearly killed her. Pain exploded through her body. She screamed, falling to her knees. The pillar was protected, warded against exactly this kind of interference. "Elara!" Lucian was at her side instantly. "I'm okay," she gasped. "But I can't break through the wards. They're too strong." "Then we need a different approach," Lucian said. He looked at the pillar, then at the rift, calculating. "What if we don't break them? What if we redirect them?" "Redirect them where?" "Back to the source. The rift is feeding on magic, right? What if we give it too much? Overload the system?" It was insane, but no more insane than anything else they'd tried. "I can't do it alone," Elara said. "The amount of power needed—" "So we do it together," Lucian said. "The bond connects us. Our power should combine." Elara met his eyes, saw absolute faith there. Trust. "Okay," she said. "Let's try." They moved to the center of the valley, hands clasped, power building between them. The bond thrummed, golden and strong. Elara felt Lucian's strength flowing into her, felt her own power amplifying through their connection. She'd never felt anything like it. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely overwhelming. "Now!" Lucian shouted. They released the power together, a massive surge of combined energy that hit the rift like a tidal wave. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the rift began to pulse erratically. The shadow beasts froze, their connection to the void disrupted, and the rift started to collapse. But not gently. It was imploding, sucking everything nearby toward it. Energy, matter, the shadow beasts themselves. "Fall back!" Ashara screamed. "Everyone retreat!" Soldiers scrambled away from the rift as it collapsed inward, pulling the shadow beasts back through the tear. The pillars cracked, the symbols fading. And then, with a sound like reality breaking, the rift sealed itself. Silence fell over the valley. They'd won. Elara collapsed, completely drained. Lucian caught her, both of them sinking to the ground together. Around them, soldiers were cheering, crying, embracing. "We did it," Elara whispered. "You did it," Lucian corrected. "Your idea, your power. I just helped." But before Elara could respond, Isla was there, her face grim. "Don't celebrate yet. Look!" She pointed to the now sealed rift, to the ground around it, carved into the earth, revealed by the collapse of the ritual, a message in symbols that made Alara's blood run cold. "What does it say?" Ashara asked. Isla's voice was tight. "This was the first gate. There are 6 more." The cheering stopped. Reality set in. They'd won the battle. But the war was just beginning, and somewhere out there, whoever had orchestrated all of this was already preparing the next move. The message carved into the earth changed everything. 6 more gates, 6 more rituals, 6 more chances for reality to tear apart and unleash whatever nightmare was waiting on the other side. They returned to Ravenspire with the combined northern and western forces exhausted and shaken. But there was no time to rest. If what the message implied was true, they had weeks at most to find and destroy the other ritual sites before whoever orchestrated this tried again. Elara spent the first day back cataloging everything they knew. The attack patterns, the ritual components, the blood magic. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "We need to find the mage," she said during the emergency council meeting. Northern and Western representatives sat at the same table now, an alliance born of necessity and blood. Whoever's powerful enough to open gates between worlds, to possess dozens of wolves, to orchestrate all of this. They're the key. "Ronan might know something," Isla suggested, "if the possession left any memories." "He's barely functional," one of the Northern healers reported. "Half the time he doesn't know his own name. The other half he's screaming about voices in the dark." "Then we make him functional," Ashara said bluntly. "Use your seraphim magic. See if you can pull the information out of his mind." Every head turned toward Elara. "I don't know how to do that," she said. "I'm still learning to control the basics. Diving into someone's fractured mind. I could kill him, or worse." "He's dying anyway," Ashara said. "The healers give him days at most. The possession burned through him too deeply." Elara looked at Lucian, who was watching her with concern. "It's your choice," he said. "I won't force you to try something this dangerous." She thought about Ronan, about everything he'd done to her. Part of her wanted to let him die without lifting a finger, wanted that small, petty revenge. But the larger part, the part that had learned to survive, to lead, to be more than her worst moments, knew that wasn't who she wanted to be. "I'll try," she said, "but I need time to prepare, and I need him stable enough to withstand the process." They gave her 3 days. 3 days to practice reaching out with her power gently instead of explosively. 3 days to learn the delicate art of touching another mind without destroying it. Isla helped train her, though even she admitted this was beyond her expertise. "Seraphim magic is instinctual," she said. "You have to feel your way through it. Trust yourself." "That's your advice? Trust myself? What else can you do? There's no instruction manual for this." On the 3rd day, they brought Ronan to a private chamber. He looked terrible, gaunt, hollow-eyed, barely present. When he saw Elara, something flickered in his expression. Recognition. Fear? It was gone too quickly to tell. "Ronan," she said gently, sitting across from him, "I need you to stay calm. I'm going to try to help you." "Help," he repeated, the word slurred. "Too late for help. It's in my head. Always in my head." "What's in your head?" "The voice, the eyes. Promised me everything. Gave me nothing but screaming." He laughed, the sound broken. "Should have kept you. Should have known." Elara felt an unexpected wave of pity. Ronan had been cruel, yes. Had destroyed her, yes. But looking at him now, she saw him for what he really was. A small man who'd made terrible choices and paid a price far worse than he'd deserved. "I need you to let me in," she said. "Into your memories. Can you do that?" "Doesn't matter. Nothing matters. It matters to me. And to the thousands of people who'll die if we can't stop this." Ronan's eyes focused on her just for a moment. a flash of the man he used to be. Always so earnest, so serious, drove me crazy. He reached out with a shaking hand. Do it. If you can fix this, fix it. Elara took his hand and closed her eyes. The world fell away. She was inside Ronan's mind, a fractured landscape of memories and madness. Images flashed past, the night he rejected her, shot through with shame and doubt he'd buried deep. His desperation to maintain power as his pack questioned him. The moment he saw her at Ravenspire and felt everything he'd tried to forget come rushing back. And then, darkness. A presence that wasn't Ronan, cold and vast and ancient. The voice spoke and Elara's blood froze. So you've come looking, it said. The little seraphim who broke my ritual. How delightful. Who are you? Elara demanded. I have many names, but you may call me Kael. I've been watching you, Elara Quinn. Watching and waiting. You're so much more interesting than I anticipated. Why are you doing this? The gates? The shadow beasts? What do you want? What all exiles want? To come home. I was banished from this world centuries ago, locked away in the void between realms. But the hierarchies that imprisoned me have grown weak, complacent. And now with the right sacrifices, the right power, the presence pressed closer, suffocating. I can return and remake everything. I'll stop you. Will you? You can barely control your own power. You're a child playing with forces you don't understand. Kael's laugh echoed through Ronan's fractured mind. But you're right that I need power to fully manifest. Seraphim blood would work nicely. Perhaps I should thank you for awakening. You've made this so much easier. Elara tried to pull back, to retreat from the connection, but Kael's presence held her fast. I could take you now, he whispered. Possess you the way I possessed this broken alpha. Use your power to open all the gates at once. Terror flooded through her. She could feel him pressing against her mind, trying to find a way in. But then, warmth, golden light, the bond with Lucian blazing to life like a beacon. You're not alone, Lucian's voice, clear and strong even across the distance. I'm here, hold on. The bond strengthened her, gave her an anchor. Elara pushed back against Kael's presence with everything she had. Another time then, Kael said, already retreating. But soon, little seraphim, very soon. The connection shattered. Elara gasped, falling backward. Strong hands caught her, Lucian, his face pale with fear. What happened? You were screaming. Kael? Elara managed. The mage's name is Kael. He was exiled centuries ago. He's trying to use the gates to return. Ronan collapsed forward, blood trickling from his nose. The healers rushed to him, but Elara could see the truth. The connection with Kael had been the only thing keeping him alive. Now that it was severed, he was fading fast. Elara, Ronan whispered. She leaned closer. I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserved better. I know, she said, and meant it. Ronan smiled weakly. You're going to be a hell of a queen. Then his eyes closed, and he was gone. Elara sat back, feeling empty, not triumphant, not vindicated, just tired. Come on, Lucian said gently. You need rest. But rest would have to wait, because the moment Ronan died, every magical alarm in Ravenspire started screaming. Another gate was opening. They mobilized within the hour. This time, they knew what to expect, where to go. The next ritual site was in the Eastern Territories, in a canyon system that had once been sacred ground. They arrived to find the ritual already in progress. Eastern clan warriors, hundreds of them, stood in formation around another set of ancient pillars. And at the center, directing the ceremony, stood a figure in black robes, Kael. He was tall and painfully thin, with silver hair and eyes that burned with that same empty light Elara had seen in the possessed. He looked almost translucent, like he wasn't fully there. Welcome, he called out when he saw them. King Lucian, Commander Ashara, and of course my favorite seraphim. You came just in time for the grand finale. Shut it down, Kael, Lucian said, his voice carrying across the canyon. Whatever you're planning, it ends now. Does it? And who's going to stop me? You? Kael gestured to the Eastern warriors. They're all volunteers, you know. I promised them power, freedom from the northern and western kingdoms that have oppressed them for so long, and all they had to do was help me come home. You're lying to them, Elara shouted. "The gates don't bring freedom. They bring shadow beasts, death, destruction." "To temporary inconveniences," Kael said dismissively. "Once I'm fully manifested, I can control what comes through. Use it to reshape this world into something better." "You're insane." "I'm visionary. There's a difference." He raised his arms, and the pillars began to glow. "But enough talk. Let's see if you can actually stop me this time." The battle was harder than the first. The Eastern warriors fought with the desperation of people who'd been promised hope and couldn't afford to lose it. The shadow beasts that poured through the partially opened gate were stronger, more solid. Elara fought alongside Lucian, their combined power the only thing holding back the tide. But Kael was draining magic from the battle itself, feeding it into the ritual. Every spell cast, every power used, it was all fuel for the gate. "We're making it worse," Isla shouted. "Every time we use magic, he gets stronger." "Then we fight without magic," Ashara said. "Old-fashioned way, steel and strength." It was brutal work, exhausting. Elara's body screamed in protest, but she pushed through. They had to reach Kael, had to disrupt the ritual before the gate opened fully. She broke through the eastern line with Lucian at her side. They reached the center circle, weapons raised. Kael looked at them and smiled. Too late. The gate exploded open, and Kael stepped into it. The void wrapped around him like a lover's embrace. "No!" Elara lunged forward, but Lucian grabbed her. "It's a trap. He wants you to follow him. If he crosses over fully, if he becomes real again, we can't stop him." "Then we don't let him cross over," Lucian said. His eyes met hers, and she saw the decision there, the sacrifice. "No," she said. "Don't you dare." "Someone has to hold the gate," Lucian said. "Keep it from opening all the way, and I'm strong enough to do it." "You'll die?" "Maybe. But everyone else will live. That's the trade." Tears burned in Elara's eyes. "I won't let you." "You don't get to make that choice for me," Lucian said, throwing her own words back at her with a sad smile. "This is mine." He kissed her, fierce and desperate and final. Then he stepped into the gate. The void tried to consume him. Elara could see it, could feel through the bond how it tore at him. But Lucian was the strongest alpha alive. He planted his feet and held. The gate stopped expanding, began to shrink. Kael screamed in rage, trying to push forward, but Lucian held the line. Held it even as the power burned through him. Elara couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She could feel Lucian dying through the bond, could feel him fading, and then she understood. She didn't need to watch him sacrifice himself. She didn't need to accept this trade. She had her own power, her own choice. Elara stepped forward into the gate. The void was agony, like being torn apart molecule by molecule. She could hear Kael laughing, could feel him reaching for her, but she also felt Lucian, felt the bond burning brighter than ever, felt their power combining. "Together," she said. "Together," Lucian agreed. They released everything, every ounce of power they had, every bit of strength. The seraphim magic blazing golden, the alpha dominance like thunder. It hit Kael head on. He screamed, a sound like reality breaking, and then he was gone. Not destroyed, but banished, sent back into the void deeper than before. The gate collapsed violently. Elara and Lucian were thrown backward, hitting the ground hard. For a moment, Elara thought they'd failed, thought she was dying. Then she felt hands on her face, heard Lucian's voice, rough and worried and alive. "Elara, Elara, look at me." She opened her eyes. He was bleeding from a dozen cuts, bruised and battered, but breathing, alive. "You're an idiot," she said. "Says the woman who jumped into the void with me. I learned from the best." Around them, the battle was over. The Eastern warriors were surrendering, the shadow beasts gone. The gate was sealed. They'd won. Ashara appeared above them, offering a hand. "Can you two stop being dramatic for 5 minutes and let the healers look at you?" "Probably not," Elara said. But she let herself be helped up anyway. The aftermath took weeks. The Eastern clans had to be negotiated with, reparations made. The Western coalition demanded assurances that the North hadn't orchestrated the whole thing. Northern nobles wanted Elara investigated to make sure she wasn't a threat. It was exhausting. Frustrating. Every day brought new challenges, new people questioning her right to be there. But Elara faced them all. Not because she wanted to prove herself anymore, but because this was her responsibility now. Her choice. 3 months after the final gate closed, Lucian called a formal gathering of all the kingdoms, northern, western, eastern, and southern representatives. Hundreds of wolves all assembled in the great hall of Ravenspire. Elara stood beside Lucian at the front, wearing formal robes that still felt foreign. She'd come a long way from the ragged, broken woman who'd been cast out. But some days, she still felt like that girl, still wondered if she deserved to be here. "We gather today to honor those who fell defending against the Void incursion," Lucian began. "Northern, western, and eastern wolves who fought side by side, who proved that when we work together, we're stronger than any threat." Applause filled the hall. Elara saw faces she recognized, soldiers who'd fought in the canyon, healers who'd saved lives, council members who'd initially opposed her. "But we also gather," Lucian continued, "to acknowledge the future, the alliances we've forged, the changes we need to make." He turned to Elara. "And to formally recognize the woman who made all of this possible." Elara's heart started racing. They'd talked about this, but doing it publicly was different. "Elara Quinn," Lucian said, "you were cast out as weak, rejected as unworthy. The hierarchies we've built, the systems we've relied on for centuries, declared you defective and threw you away." The hall went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. "Those hierarchies," Lucian said, his voice carrying to every corner, "were wrong." He held out his hand. Elara took it, stepping forward. "I've seen her survive impossible odds, break blood magic that should have been unbreakable, unite kingdoms that have been enemies for generations. And through it all, she's never once let power change who she is." He looked at her with pride and love. "She is my mate, my equal. And starting today, she is your queen. Not because she married me, not because the bond chose her, but because she's earned it." Lucian went to one knee, and behind him, slowly, every wolf in the hall did the same. Hundreds of them. Northern and western and eastern and southern, all bowing to the Omega they'd once have dismissed without a thought. Elara stood there, overwhelmed. Part of her wanted to tell them to get up, that she didn't need this, didn't deserve this. But that was the old voice, the one that had been trained to shrink and hide. The new voice, the one she'd forged in fire and blood and survival, said something different. "You've earned this, not through birth or luck or someone else's choice, through your own strength, your own decisions, your own refusal to break." "Rise," she said, and her voice didn't shake. "All of you." They stood, and Elara saw something shift in their eyes, the last traces of doubt fading, replaced by respect, by acceptance, by recognition of who she really was. The ceremony continued. There were speeches and oaths and formalities, but Elara barely heard them. She was thinking about the journey that had brought her here. Every terrible moment, every choice, every scar. Later, after the crowds had dispersed and the formalities were done, Elara stood on the fortress balcony, looking out at the mountains. Lucian joined her, sliding an arm around her waist. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Being formally recognized as queen? Strange," she admitted, "like wearing someone else's clothes. But I'll grow into it." "You already have." They stood in comfortable silence. Then Elara said, "I've been thinking about Ironclaw, about going back." Lucian stiffened slightly. "Why?" "Because I need to finish it. Need to face them not as the girl they cast out, but as the woman I've become." She looked at him. "I need to prove to myself that I've really let it go, that they don't have power over me anymore." Lucian studied her face. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone. I know, that's why I need to do it. Not for them, for me." He nodded slowly. "Then we'll go together." "No," Elara said. "This is something I need to do alone." She left for Ironclaw territory a week later. The journey took 3 days, the same path she'd walked in shame and desperation 6 months earlier. But this time she wasn't running, she was walking back in. The pack grounds looked smaller than she remembered, less significant. She walked through the gates unchallenged. News of who she was had spread, and no one wanted to stop the Northern Queen. She found the pack assembled in the same clearing where Ronan had rejected her. Different alpha now. A woman named Kira, who'd taken over after Ronan's death. The pack members were thinner, harder. The alliance with the North that Ronan had tried to secure with his lies had never materialized. They'd struggled. Kira stood when Elara entered. "Your Majesty, we weren't expecting you." "I'm not here officially," Elara said. "I'm here to make something clear." The pack watched her with fear and curiosity and shame. "6 months ago, you stood here and laughed while your alpha rejected me, called me weak, defective, unfit." Elara's voice was steady. "You cheered when he cast me out to die." Silence. "I'm not here for apologies," Elara continued, "or revenge. I'm here to tell you what I learned out there in the wild, alone and broken and convinced I had no value." She looked at each of them in turn. "I learned that what you think of me doesn't matter, that the hierarchies you worship, Alpha, Beta, Omega, are just constructs, ways to control people, ways to make some of us feel superior and others feel worthless." Mira Thane was in the crowd. She looked away when Elara's gaze landed on her. "I learned that I never needed your approval, never needed to fit into your boxes. I just needed to survive long enough to find people who saw me for what I really am." Elara stepped closer to the fire, to the exact spot where she'd stood that terrible night. "You all made me believe I was nothing, that being cast out was the worst thing that could happen to me." She smiled, and it was genuine. "Turns out, it was the best, because it forced me to become someone who didn't need you, didn't need your acceptance or your hierarchy or your approval." She turned to leave, then paused. "I'm not going to destroy you. I'm not going to take revenge, because you don't matter enough to waste my energy on." She looked at Kira. "But if I hear that you're still treating people the way you treated me, that you're still using rank to abuse and discard wolves who don't fit your mold, I'll come back. And next time, it won't be as a visitor." She walked out of Ironclaw territory with her head high. And this time, when she left, she felt nothing but freedom. Back at Ravenspire, Lucian was waiting. "How was it?" "Exactly what I needed," Elara said. She wrapped her arms around him. "I'm done with them. Really done. They're not my story anymore." "What is your story?" Elara thought about it. About the girl she'd been and the woman she'd become. About the journey from broken to powerful. From victim to queen. "I don't know yet," she said honestly. "But I get to write it now. That's what matters." They stood on the balcony as the sun set, painting the mountains in gold and red. Somewhere in the fortress below, people were depending on them to lead, to make decisions, to be something more than they'd been. And Elara was ready for it. Not because she was perfect or fearless or had all the answers, but because she'd learned the truth that fear and doubt had hidden for so long. She'd always been enough, always been worthy, always been powerful. She just had to stop asking permission to be herself. Months turned into years. The northern, western, and eastern territories formed an alliance. The old hierarchies began to shift. More wolves like Elara, ones who'd been cast aside, overlooked, dismissed, started finding their power. Not everyone liked the changes. Some fought against them. But change happened anyway, slow and steady and inevitable. Elara became the queen she'd never imagined she could be. Not perfect, not without doubt, but real, honest. Willing to stand up for the wolves who had no one else. And sometimes, late at night when she couldn't sleep, she'd remember that night in the clearing, the laughter, the rejection, the shame. But it didn't hurt anymore. Because that girl who'd been cast out wasn't her anymore. She'd been forged into something new in the fire of survival, something unbreakable, something that reminded everyone who saw her of a simple truth. The people who try to make you small do it because they fear what you'll become if you ever realize how big you really are. Elara Quinn had realized it, and the world would never be the same. Years later, when young wolves asked her for advice, the ones who felt broken and powerless and lost, Elara always told them the same thing. They'll try to convince you that you're weak, that you don't belong, that you should be grateful for whatever scraps they give you. Don't believe them. Your worth isn't determined by their approval. Your power isn't limited by their expectations. You're not here to fit into their boxes. You're here to break them apart and build something better. And then she'd smile, the smile of someone who'd walked through fire and come out forged in gold. "The hierarchies that reject you," she'd say, "are the same ones that fear you. Remember that, and never ever let them make you forget what you're capable of." Because in the end, Elara Quinn wasn't just the Omega who became a queen. She was the woman who chose herself. And that was the most powerful thing she'd ever done.